Broadcasting live from Houston, from the space city to the world. You are watching Now Media Television.
Welcome back to Biz Talk with Sherman. I'm your host, Sherman On from Hoteling Insurance Services. Welcome back to the show, Roland Parker.
Hey, Sherman. Great to be back on the show.
Okay, quick question here. Social media and access for employees. What are your thoughts?
Blocking certain sites is actually a good idea. And the main reason for that is that there's certain sites that are malicious. You don't want them to go to. There's also the social media sites. It's not that the sites themselves are bad, but people post bad links. And sometimes this is done if a person's account could have been compromised, or they just share it without realizing that they're linking somebody to a malicious site. So links within those social media sites create a vulnerability to the entire network, because once one person gets infected, it spreads like wildfire throughout the network. So blocking those sites is a great idea.
And what are the best options to be able to block sites?
So there's a couple of ways you can do this. If employees are at the office, if you've got a firewall, what you can do is block those sites from the firewall, and that prevents those sites from being accessed. Now, if employees are outside of the office, it's a little bit more difficult. You don't have the same control. But if you're part of our managed service program, we enable a program called Threatlocker, and that's zero trust. And what that does is it whitelists the known good programs and says nothing else is allowed to run. So if somebody clicks on a link or an attachment, it's going to prevent that from running. Now, in addition to that, we use a program called SentinelOne, and that comes with endpoint detection and remediation. What does that mean? Well, if somebody gets infected and it gets past the defenses, the endpoint detection looks for files that are changing, and it remediates by quarantining that machine, prevents the spread from going any further. And we can come in the next morning and fix the machine up, get rid of the bad guys, and you're back to business.
That's amazing. So when it comes to what are the dangers of employees accessing some of these sites to the company?
And of course, the dangers as we discussed. If, people getting compromised, their email address is being compromised, ransomware getting into the machine just by accessing those social media sites. So you want to prevent any access apart from the places that your employees should be going. And you can do that with your firewall internally, or by a combination of Threatlocker, your zero trust program, and SentinelOne with your endpoint detection and remediation. And that's going to prevent your entire network from coming down with either a virus or from a ransomware attack.
And now, should companies allow their employees to have access to company email on their personal devices?
Companies, it's pretty common these days. Companies allow their employees to get the emails on their personal phones. The danger with that is, on your company-issued computers, you've put all your security, you've got all your lockdowns in place, and then you've got a vulnerability. You allow your employee to get his emails or her emails on their phones. The danger with that is that now the bad guys are starting to attack mobile devices. Now, it could be something simple as clicking on a link or an attachment, either from a text message or from an email. And what happens is that the email and password gets exposed. When that happens, the bad guys now have access to your emails. So you've got to be very careful when deciding, should an employee get the emails on their phones, and what additional things can you put in place? One of the things that you can do is put in two-factor authentication, which means that the bad guys, if they try and access your email, can't get in because of that two-factor authentication. So it's not something that you should willy-nilly go out and let everybody do. Put the security measures in place and only make sure key personnel get their employees on their phones. Otherwise, you could be exposing your entire environment.
Now, should an employee be using their own personal laptops for work?
Now, as far as bringing in your personal equipment, this really is a no-go. In the past, we used to think of, bring your own device to the office or work from home. The danger with that is that you've got no control. So they could be allowing their kids to download games. They could be going to sites that are malicious. You've got no control over that laptop. So you should only allow your employees to have company-issued computers and devices before you allow them to connect to your network. That way you can have Threatlocker installed, you can have SentinelOne, you can have the machine correctly locked down, you've got the security in place. Those are the only devices that you allow into your network. If you allow them to use their home computers, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's where we've seen an entire company be brought down with ransomware just because they allowed their bookkeeper to remote from home. She got hit with ransomware. She remoted into her office computer. That got hit with ransomware and it spread throughout the entire network. Don't do it. Always have employees have company-issued devices.
Now, can you help in the transition?
And we can help you with that transition. We can put in a firewall if you don't have a firewall. We can modify your firewall so that you've got your correct settings. And we can put those security devices in place, like Threatlocker, SentinelOne, that are going to give you your zero trust and your endpoint detection and remediation.
Now, should an employee sign something during that transition?
And as far as paperwork getting signed, this is something that if they're having company-issued computers, you should get them to sign something. And, if people do have any questions, they can always reach out to us at 281-647-9977, or they can reach us on the web at www.impresscomputers.tech. That's IMPRESS computers.tech. Thanks, Sherman.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Appreciate all our guests. This is it. Sherm's out.